All right, welcome back to the Fuel Show. Once again, we're in the pits with Chris and Rob from IPD and Rally Tech, and we wanted to talk about some of their other products. We've talked about performance, we've talked about some design aspects of what they do here, but we wanted to talk about more of the lifestyle stuff. Now, you do a lot of stuff with interior pieces, you do a lot of stuff with some of the items that you can help even keep your dog in the back, but you can also talk about some of the things you can do to protect your vehicle, and one of those things I have in my hand right here, it's a skid plate, and well, tell us a little bit about this, because there's a story I think I'm going to lead up to.
Go ahead, Rob.
Well, these skid plates are really useful. They help protect that oil pan, which is really the critical aspect in these cars because they are aluminum. They look just like the jacking points, and if you're not careful, you can do damage to them. And it's an expensive replacement, from $500 to $700 if you do damage to them.
Yeah, and we have a little story from Chris. Now, why do I want to buy one of these, Chris? I think there's something that we might want to touch on with this exact type of vehicle, a V70.
Well, not necessarily does it help protect, rocks and wood debris that might be on the road for anybody that's going up to the mountain for skiing or off-roading or whatnot. The oil pan is very accessible on the bottom of these Volvos. And like I said, not just rocks and wood, other things can damage these oil pans. As in my case, I had a friend come over to my house that was utilizing my tools in my garage, and I made the mistake of even working on Volvos for the past 10 years. I threw a jack underneath it to go ahead and jack up on the cross member right here, and I ended up jacking up on the oil pan unknowing when I was in a hurry, and ended up popping a hole right into my buddy's oil pan.
Well, yeah, you kind of said something about the idea. It looked kind of like a waterfall of black gold.
It was during the summertime, and I was wearing flip-flops in my garage. Probably not recommended for working on a car, but I looked down and I had a pool of oil surrounding my feet. So that's when I called my good friend Rob here and said, "Hey, well, how much time you got in your hands? Because we got to get this oil pan off this car."
And that's kind of the thing I wanted to talk about too. Is that you touched on it can be an expensive job. You're talking about $500 or more to pull the oil pan out of one of these.
Yeah, that's $500 if you're good friends with your mechanic. Unfortunately, the oil pan can't simply be unbolted and drop straight down. It's actually a lengthy process to drop the subframe, get the oil pan down, reseal It's a challenge. It doesn't use a gasket. It uses that weird anaerobic sealer that can be challenging.
Yeah.
Okay.
Part of the other things too, while we look at you look at the oil pan and you might think it's very basic. You can see actually all the oil pan bolts. It looks like it can just drop right out, but actually you have to support the motor and drop the whole subframe around that just to be able to jog this oil pan out of the car, which becomes very lengthy. Rob, being a master technician with Volvo, it took us the better part of actually a whole Sunday to be able to get this fixed. So.
Well, it shows how something like this can be so much of an advantage for someone that owns one of these cars. Now, what's the kind of the range of where these start? I'm sure that there might be a little bit of a price difference between certain models and maybe different designs that you might use.
Yeah, we have all the skid plates are specially designed for all the Volvo applications for the chassis. We also do them for Subaru, so we have them for the Outback models, the Impreza models. We also have them for Volvo, V70, the newer S40s and 850s and XC90s even. But all of them are specified, and they range anywhere from about $159 up to $230, depending on how much geometry goes into the bends or if there's any weld that are needed and holes that are drilled. All of our skid plates, you can still access the oil filter and the drain bolt, so you don't have to remove it every time you want to change your oil.
Okay, now you had said in one of the earlier segments that we came by IPD was that there was more than just a protection value with these. It was more of even something to do with the cooling and the heating.
That's right. The skid plate actually works really well. Most cars have an air guide that would sit ahead of where a skid plate would be, what helps direct the air into the radiator, the intercooler, the condenser. This does the same thing being under the car. It keeps that air flowing all the way back through, cooling off the headers, cooling off the downpipe, the turbo, the exhaust, rather than just escaping out underneath the engine.
Okay. Now, is there any other items that you do that are like the skid plate for other parts of the vehicle? Say if it's an all-wheel drive or the Subarus, I know they're very open differential in the back to what might be damaged. Is there other products that you build that are like this?
Earlier, like you looked at with Rob, we're in the middle of designing a lot of new products. One thing that we're going to be working on pretty soon for the Subarus is, like you said, the rear differentials are hanging out right out in the open. We want to be able to design a skid plate that's not only going to protect the differential, but a piece that will actually branch off and kind of protect the axle shafts as well. So since they're all-wheel drive, they have rear axles in the back that are exposed. A lot of guys rally and want to take those off-road, so we want to be able to protect those as well.
All right, there's one other thing I wanted to ask you, Rob, was the ability to install this. It looks like it's pretty much set up to go right where any factory item would go. It looks like there might even be some rigidity advantages to this as well.
That's exactly right. We utilize many of the factory mounting locations as well as simple points in the chassis to affix to. We don't want any people to have to drill holes or thread things through, try to get nuts on the back top of something you can't reach. So we really make our skid plates as easy to install as possible. We use a quality T6061 aluminum, laser cut. Some of them are actually water jet cut, 1/8 inch thick, hydroform, so we keep them really, really lightweight, easy to install, but you do get some rigidity out of the vehicle when you bolt that on. You're taking a large plate and fix it across multiple points. That's going to stiffen it up to some degree.
Yeah, and it's good to know that you guys are doing the R&D for this, so a customer that comes in and wants it, they don't have to worry about the fit or worrying about trying to make some sort of adjustment on the car itself just to install the product. Now, one more time, Chris, I wanted to touch on how important these can be. You said they range anywhere from like $150 all the way up to maybe $250.
Yep.
You got to look at it at this point. If I have a new Volvo, I'd much rather buy one of these for around $200 than do a $700 oil change, which is basically mean I punched a hole in my drain pan.
Sure.
One more time, give us the overview.
Well, it's really nice because, we've had people bust these oil pans out just pulling into their driveways. It just, things happen, and there's no better way to protect it than, spending a couple $100 and guaranteeing that you're never going to have a problem, and also guaranteeing that you can actually jack on that and not have to worry about popping a hole in your oil pan.
Well, that would be you, and
That
we'll
would be
leave
me.
that at that. Now, hey, one more time, you even get, now look at that, you even get the IPD logo on there. Again, one more time, this is Dennis. Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Chris, for coming by. This is Dennis, and I'm in the pits, and this is The Fuel Show.
Thank you for watching The Fuel Show. Please join us every Sunday at 12:30 on Portland CW for The Fuel Show. And on next week's show, we're going to have 2 more behind the wheels. We're taking a look at the Jeep Unlimited Rubicon along with VW's GTI in a 4-door edition. And don't forget, fuel is nitrous for your mind.